we're good to go. There you go. What's up? Hey, what's up, everybody? Tom Content here with the Citizens Utility Board. And welcome back to CUB Tracks. We're here for another episode. And today I'm joined by...
Rich Storck.
All right, Rich Storck of CUB. We're doing another one of our Meet the Team episodes of CUB Tracks. So we wanted to continue along, and we've had a couple of these already, but wanted to get Rich as kind of the institutional memory of CUB. Because I wanted, and we'll start right there. How long have you been at CUB, and what brought you here?
It's been so long, it's hard to remember, Tom. I started in June of 1994.
There you go.
Coming on 29 years in a little less than a month.
Okay.
And I came from the nonprofit world. I was a volunteer at WRT FM here in Madison Community Radio. I was on-air DJ and programmer, and I also helped out with fundraising there. And that was my in here at CUB. The current development director at the time asked me to join the staff and become an associate development director.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you go. And so what was your background? And your training was, I believe, UW-Madison.
Yes, I have a degree in psychology. It took a while. I put myself through part-time, delivered pizzas in Madison. I didn't want to have any debt, so it took a while to get through, but I did it and got done, and I was volunteering at Ward at that time.
Did you hear that?
Too.
He got through college without debt. Everybody pay attention.
Yeah, it took 10 years, but I did it, and then got involved at community radio, and was interested in that, and especially the fundraising was very important there. It's listener-sponsored community radio. And just got a real sense for it that it got past the sense that fundraising doesn't have to be painful. It's necessary. Donors are interested in the organization. They want to give.
Right.
And that's kind of what the director at the time picked up on. He was on the community advisory board at WRT and asked me to come to CUB.
That's great. And obviously we should have said right at the outset your title. Director of Outreach and Engagement, so you handle the fundraising, you oversee our outreach efforts. So, what does a typical week look like for you?
Sure, it has to do with on the donor side with members. It's very important that the records be kept clearly, accurately, consistently. That we engage them regularly, make sure they know what the work of CUB is doing, and that we need their support, and that their support is important and vital to what we do. Right. I also am involved in the finances of CUB. I do our bookkeeping, pay a lot of bills, prepare for the audits, make sure everything's our records are accurate and up to date for you as executive director and for a board of directors to oversee the operations of CUB.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about CUB's mission of advocating for residential, small business, farm customers, what really resonates for you the most about, what you've seen this organization do for those 29 years?
Well, the customer is challenged to represent themselves in these proceedings against all the resources the utilities can bring to bear in the case. If they want to raise rates, they have, with ratepayer funding, they are able to hire experts, attorneys, make a substantial case for why they think they deserve a raise or they can build a power plant. And the customers don't have that expertise on their own. And the Citizens Utility Board concept is crucial for customers to have a voice, to have a seat at this table.
Yeah, and when you joined CUB, there were just a few CUBs around the country. Obviously, for those keeping score, we were the first CUB created in 1979, and then Oregon and Illinois came in after that. But at that time, that was pretty much it. And a few similar organizations that didn't have the CUB name, perhaps. But we've seen actually the CUB name expand in recent years. What's that like to see this concept being extended across the Midwest?
It's excellent. It's very encouraging to have this type of representation in states other than Wisconsin, Illinois, and Oregon. Getting the word out that that the regulators who make these decisions need to make these decisions with the customers' input in mind, residential customers and small business customers. That they have that voice needs to be heard, and it's great that other states are making that possible for their customers.
Great, yeah, and one of the things you talked about is the kind of the balance that people can't represent themselves, and I'm reminded of when we went to the legislature to talk about reforming the funding, and we had lobbyists were in the room, and I think I was able to tell that the chair of the Energy and Utilities Committee that there were twice as many utility lobbyists in the room as there were CUB staff, and it's just another way of looking at our work to try to get balance.
Yeah, it's a disparity,
right,
of influence of voices, and I'm glad you made the point of the legislature too. It's an area that I've seen evolve over the 30 years at CUB. We're now much more aware, and we have the ability and resources to keep an eye on the legislature and to make sure that bills are passed, that there's input from the Citizens Utility Board when legislatures make these decisions. Because they have a lot of decisions to make. They get a lot of information. They have to go through it very rapidly. And CUB now has the ability to be sure that they get information from the customer side when there are utility bills and legislation that they have to consider.
Right. I'm referring to my chicken scratch on my reporter's notebook here. So, because I got out the reporter's notebook because I'm finally asking questions again. I haven't gotten to do that in a while. So, looking at how CUB has changed, I mean, one of the things that we saw in the early days, long before I joined, is CUB was able to have its inserts in seeking funds from customers actually in the utility bills. And how did that evolve? And that went away, obviously.
Yeah, it sure did.
Joined is CUB was able to have its inserts in seeking funds from customers actually in the utility bills. And how did that evolve? And that went away, obviously.
Yeah, it sure did. When the CUBs were formed, Ralph Nader and his colleagues had the idea for the utility bill inserts to help fund the organization and keep them as private nonprofits rather than not beholden to government. And that was how CUB Wisconsin was formed, that the funding would come from inserts in utility bills asking folks to join CUB. They were very well written. They're very interesting. We have copies in our archives of our old ones here at CUB in Wisconsin. And they were very effective. CUB Wisconsin was able to raise a lot of money, had a large staff. But in the 1980s, a utility in California, there was a CUB-like organization in San Diego, I believe it's called TURN. Is that accurate?
That TURN is the statewide group. I think there was actually a local group, but I don't know if it's the same outfit.
But the California utility sued, said that there was a violation of their First Amendment rights in terms of what they were being forced to say something they didn't want to. The Supreme Court agreed with them, and the ability to use inserts to raise funds was ended. So the Citizens Utility Board of Wisconsin dissolved and reformed as a private nonprofit organization, and that's the CUB we are today.
Okay, but the ability that changed the fundraising possibilities back in the day, not to be able to reach all the customers in every month or very frequently.
Correct. Yes, that was where here at CUB in the late 80s, the team that came in, executive director and program managers, that was when they decided to hire a development director proper to cultivate. We were able to keep the donors we had. We had records of the donors we had, and to continue to cultivate those. And it was that development director that subsequently hired me.
Right. And we're still doing that, and you're still doing that today with
Yes.
through and how do we reach out to you help us reach out to our members? It's social media, it's e-newsletters, but it's a whole slew of things, right?
Yeah, primarily it's our members are have a lot of them have been with us for a very, very long time and are used to getting paper mail from us.
Right.
And even in the digital age, we do contact folks via email. We send newsletters. We are on social media. It's all very important. But we still are doing paper mail and newsletters. And I think we will continue to do that. I will continue to push to do that because as effective as electronic media is, it disappears from people's eyes. And what a nice thing about a newsletter or a fundraising letter is that folks that are interested in us, like you and I both do, we get lots of letters from organizations
Right.
asking us to help out. And those ones, you kind of set them aside. And they're in your view, and you keep thinking about it, you keep looking at it. So the paper portion of that, direct mail, newsletters, is still very important. It's a medium.
Right.
I don't think that'll ever go away.
Yeah, and we try to include some evergreen content in the newsletters so that people can refer back to them, keep it on the coffee table to refer back with important numbers or important resources.
Absolutely.
And so, when you think about the utility industry, I guess I'm just curious. What do you think is something that an average person would be surprised to learn about how this whole utility regulation or the utility industry works? Because you feel called as part of this. You talk to our members, and they're calling with questions.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and and this is and I talk about this with members and with folks who just call CUB every day, and what they're most surprised to learn is they like to. There's a thought that the utilities themselves make these decisions, and one of the revelations I've learned over the year was that the utilities they have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize the return on investment to their shareholders, which is really their job. And it's the Public Service Commission that balances the need for their shareholders to see returns with the customers who are paying for that. And I try to emphasize to people who call is to definitely let your legislators know. Call your legislator. Call the PSC. Voice your concerns with them. Often they say, I called my utility and they just they didn't really give me an adequate answer. And that doesn't surprise me. They're really not concerned with that. They have other higher priorities as utilities, and the folks that need to hear of your dissatisfaction with them are these decision makers at the PSC and your legislators.
Right. Yeah, and then what are some areas where you feel like it's exciting that we're doing new and different things in terms of our outreach or the way we're engaging with customers?
Yeah, it's a great time to be at CUB. We're doing so much more, not only with social media, but the
podcast.
This is what we're doing right now.
One example,
yeah,
right?
Podcast and our YouTube page is making all this information available to a wider audience. And last year we started this webinar series just loaded with great information for consumers, be they residential or small business, on how they can just individually for themselves improve their utility situation, but also on policy issues that could be affecting ratepayers, customers in the future.
Yep.
Bring these up and discuss them in an open forum. And they're on our YouTube page, right now.
Yeah.
So do go visit them, find out what's going on with this issue, that issue.
Yeah, there's those and all those. There are three residential and 3 small business webinars, and if you haven't checked them out, they are available on the YouTube page. And it's actually it was a diverse group of partners that we had on that. Across the spectrum from Renew Wisconsin and Midwest Renewable Energy Association to the Conservative Energy Forum. We had and then panelists from some of the energy technology companies, from Focus on Energy. Pretty good group.
And more to come this year, Tom.
That's right. And the other thing I wanted to just check in on was have you gotten some strange questions from customers over the years about how utilities work?
Not all that strange, really.
No.
They're definitely very specific. The ones
Everything's case specific, right?
yeah, or more specific to the individual, not necessarily something that CUB does.
Right.
An issue with, I'm looking at being cut off. What do I do in that situation? We refer to the Public Service Commission. Is there a medical issue? I've heard quite a bit. I can't have my electricity cut. I'm on an oxygen concentrator.
Right.
Where it's like definitely call the Public Service Commission immediately and get your doctor in touch with them if they need to keep your utility service on. A lot of referrals of that nature where there's a medical issue where they can't be cut off, and issues with easements where folks have a utility line or access to a utility line easement on their property.
Right.
And the utility's coming in, and there seems to be there's a misunderstanding. They're cutting down these trees they're going to cut down these trees that are 100 years old. And it's outside of the easement, and it's like call the Public Service Commission immediately and make sure that they know about the case and they can act on your behalf.
Right. And then circling back to outreach, one of the other things that you're involved with our work is the public events.
Yes.
And so we're fixtures at a few events every year, including one that's coming up in June.
Yes, the Midwest Renewable Energy Association Annual Energy Fair. Being part of these is a lot of fun and maybe the best part of the job. Being out there at a table with folks walking by, hundreds of people walking by, stopping, asking, what do you do? What does CUB do? How do you help me? And engaging with folks at not only that, the MREA fair, but another fun one we do are the engineers.
Wisconsin Association of Energy Engineers.
Yes. A lot of fun. They ask excellent questions, meet a lot of new people. We have our information there. They take our information, pass it along, saying, I'm involved in my neighborhood association. I'm going to be giving this information to them. I want to let people know about what you do. And what also comes out of that is I often try to make more work for you, Tom, our executive director. I asked them to invite themselves, not only themselves, but people they may know, if they want to learn more about CUB or learn more about their energy bills, to invite CUB to their organization, whatever that may be, where we could do a utility bill clinic and explain the bills, explain how they get to be how the charges work and how the charges are determined, and also how they can save money on their bills with time of use rates or other mechanisms.
Right, and when rate cases are happening, and which seems like which is every year, depending on the utility, there's a rate case every year. There's a rate case every year every other year for most of the big utilities, and sometimes more frequently than that, but. When we come to those talks, we also provide case updates on what's the most topical things going on at the PSC that CUB's working on with each of the utilities that we're working with. And I'm just curious where you see what you're excited about as far as the recent kind of evolution of CUB over the last few years and where we're going.
Yeah, it's exciting having program staff in the office. For the majority of my time at CUB, almost all of it except the last couple of years, there was a very small staff. And the program activity, digging into the cases, figuring out what the utility wants, and how do we protect the ratepayer, how do we protect the residential and small business ratepayer was something we had to farm out to consultants. And they were excellent consultants, but they were on a case-by-case basis. And now with a program staff of 3 plus a general counsel in-house, we have the ability to dig much deeper into these cases, especially with an economist. I've learned so much from Dr. Keim in terms of how these economies work. How
sometimes we call him Steve.
Steve.
Yeah.
And but that's been fascinating. It's exciting to me to be able to get those arguments into the cases and to advance them. they're at such a level that not even our commission is necessarily familiar with that level of analysis. And I just find that very exciting.
Yeah. It creates more continuity too and the same people understanding the utilities are coming back and familiar with the issues year in, year out, instead of with the consultant model. It's, which consultant is, unless you have the same consultant every single time, but even then their focus isn't always on Wisconsin because they're consultants in multiple states. So.
Yes. Yeah, so the consultants are very busy. They're doing many cases. And also in addition to the economics is how it's, and you could probably explain this better than I can, but there are rate classes, and our regulatory director is also a rate class expert as to how you divide up the rates between these different classes and to make it fair and equitable.
Divvying up the pie. That became an issue in the big We Energies and WPS rate cases last fall, where it's like, how can we try to make things balanced so that residential customers aren't treated unfairly?
Yes. And then our newest staffer is doing things that are there's very deep there's our electric transmission system is a regional system overseen by an organization, and then he's been kind of diving into that, and it's complex.
Yeah. It's
very complex.
Ted's got a full plate for somebody, and as he's trying to learn the industry and dive into the deep end on a bunch of things at the same time.
Yeah, prior to having a regulatory staff, those were things CUB would just touch on as a staff. We'd rely on experts to figure all that out, and now we actually have the expertise on staff, and it's just begun. So I'm very excited to see where that leads for CUB and for residential and small business customers.
Right. And then on the engagement side, I think one of the goals of the organization is to keep getting more information out there to get more participation. And one of the things we were able to do last year was really highlight the public hearing process that the PSC has, and really try to activate people to really get more involved. You see that moving forward too.
Yes, and that was I thought, even though we were not happy with the outcome at the commission level, our ability to get more people involved and at the rate case hearings, the public hearings, and to have the media involvement that we were able to experience is very encouraging going forward. Establishing CUB as an authority on the customer side of these issues, being able to come to us, and our ability to get people to comment at the Public Service Commission or attend a hearing, I see only getting larger and larger, especially with the folks we're meeting, the groups we're getting to know, and collaborating with folks and getting more people at the table. I only see that increasing. It's very exciting.
Well, thanks, Rich, for joining CUB Tracks today. Appreciate your ability to come on and tell us a little bit about what you do.
It was a pleasure, Tom. I've been at CUB 29 years for a reason. I like what CUB does. It's a great organization. It's a tough issue. It's difficult. It's hard to have immediate impacts. But what I like about CUB is the persistence, not giving up, the vigilance. We keep coming at the cases. We're not going to give up.
Year in and year out. All right, well, that'll do it for this episode of CUB Tracks. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.